Good afternoon, and welcome to another dim-witted version of Diatribes from the Voice of Doom. Now here's your dumbfounded and derelict host, Voice of Doom! Hello. Okay, I wasn't going to do a diatribe so soon, but in honor of my most loyal and stalwart fan, Nick, I will do one just for him. So happy birthday, Nick, and it's not going to be very interesting, but I dedicate it to you. What's happened in the last day or two? Lots. Do I have to comment on everything? No. But it's interesting to watch the fur and the feathers fly as we move closer and closer to the abyss, as we get closer to the corona of the sun and are about to burn up. It's interesting to see how people fall apart. And it's interesting to see that sooner or later you can't really go anywhere. After a while you get pushed up against the wall where you can't fool people anymore and you can't spin things anymore, because say what you want, there's all the issues going on and there's two sides to every issue. Reality will out. The truth will out, and people will see and feel with their own eyes and experience what is happening. And whether it's happening or not, if I get sliced and I'm bleeding, maybe it's not really happening, but in my experience it is. So if we're in a matrix, then pain is part of the matrix. I'm going to get off track if I keep doing this. Okay. Hunter. People were watching the fiasco when Hunter went into the room, and it's all just surreal. Fellini wouldn't even make this into a movie, but he goes into the room with his sugar daddy on one side, who looks an awful lot like him, by the way. I know Hunter looks a lot like Petri dish, but he looks more like this guy next to him. But what their relationship is remains to be unknown. But sugar daddy on one side and mouthpiece on the other, sitting there smugly watching, like, they can't say I didn't show up. Okay. Now, I've talked to you about hearings from the past and hearings in the present, and the big difference now when the powers that be, mainstream, run-of-the-mill, bureaucratic toadies, like the press and the mainstream government, want to go after a president, and they're all on board together, then they will take all the time in the world to get the facts. I refer you to Watergate. And I already told you that I was forced to watch the whole damn hearing, which lasted all summer, all day long. And they questioned every witness, and every single senator got a chance to question, not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes, but for days, for as long as they wanted. And they got to the bottom of it all right. Now let's move on to another hearing, Iran-Contra. This was when I first noticed that these panelists aren't all on the same page. Watergate, everybody wanted Milhouse out. They were all questioning and grilling. There were no Democratic Inouye's. He was on the panel. He was going after Milhouse, but there was no Republicans like Baker running to his rescue. They were all pissed. Okay, Iran-Contra. Everybody was kind of pissed over Ollie North and the rest of the gang, Casey, and who was dead by then. There's always a dead guy involved. All those ilk. And they were running their own little government scheme with Iran and the Contras in Nicaragua. And that didn't sit well with the Congress, and they were more or less on the same page, but I started to notice that there was people that were being questioned that were pretty much holding the Congress in contempt. Like Ollie North and the rest of them. Kind of just ignoring them, and when they were being admonished, like one guy, I can't remember his name, and he was smoking his pipe, kind of looking off into the distance while all the senators were saying how bad he was. This was after they did the hearing. But the panel was mostly on board. Now we get to the Jefferson years. William Jefferson. And all the hoopla over his picadillos when he should have been tried for much more things. He should have been tried for much, much worse treason than who gave him a BJ, or whether he said no or yes, or what the meaning of is. But then I noticed, there's one side and another on this stupid panel. These D's are all running to the rescue of this idiot who I didn't like. And the goppers were all going after him. Okay. But it was over stupid things because they weren't going to get rid of him. But he was impeached, at least. They were getting halfway there. Now, what was I going to say about that? John Glenn was a D on that panel. And he might be the bravest person who ever walked the earth, but he's a lousy politician. And good riddance to him. Now, we'll just skip up to this bunch of hearings. Now, you have 5 minutes. You're 5 minutes up. I want to reclaim the last 10 seconds. You took my 10 seconds, my 10 seconds. Come on. I've already told you how ridiculous it is, and they even know it's ridiculous. They say it now. But, like I said at the beginning, the fiasco circus, sideshow, dog and pony, whatever, dumpster fire that was Hunter coming into the room and then leaving was not the fun part. The fun part was afterwards. I watched the rest of it, and even though it was boring, I picked up on some stuff. Now, these D's didn't have much to argue about, because if they say he wasn't guilty of contempt, then that's going to turn on them eventually. It's like, if I can do it, you can do it, you can do it, they can do it. So they have to kind of say something, but they say, oh, well, he was given a choice, whether it's with public or a deposition, and so he chose the public, and then you went back on your word. Well, I don't think that was the case. I think it's deposition first, then public. And the depositions, as you may well know, have a format where one person can ask questions and get all the facts out, can dig in as the questions are answered, instead of, your 5 minutes is up, stop, don't talk. You can go on for a long time. So it got interesting because the D's even started to show their hand a bit, and then it was pretty funny because, like, they were saying, well, these D's were saying this. Well, you know that if we find him under contempt, guilty of contempt, that the justice system will sit on their hands and never act on it. You know they'll do that. These were D's saying that. It's like, you guys aren't very proficient, are you? You just gave them the rope to hang yourself. Now, it didn't even stop there, because they started putting amendments in. And these amendments were, we got to agree to this, or we got to agree to that. Somewhere along the line, a D, who probably doesn't know anything, maybe a Gen Xer, or even a millennial, came up with a brilliant amendment. And he said, well, why don't we agree to have a public hearing only in deposition format, where one person can ask questions for hours. And I saw every eye in the goppers' faces light up like a Christmas tree. It's like, are you serious? A public hearing where we can delve into everything with one person asking question after question. Yeah, okay. I like that. So they voted on that, and it's like, well, no, we can't. We have to ask the no account son first whether he would agree to that. So I think it was left there. They had other things. I don't think they even got to the vote. If they did, I didn't see it on the news today. But I found that interesting that the D's not only hang themselves with their own corruption, knowing that their own justice system is corrupt, and saying it out loud. You know they won't do it. You know they won't do anything about it, so why bother? Okay. And then offering an amendment that is like, everyone will be watching. I don't care how boring a deposition is. If they have one person grilling the no account on live TV, I'm going to have a lot of popcorn. And I might even get a few candy bars and a big tall Coke. Because that'll be great. You think no account's going to answer these questions about all these shell companies and money transfers and suspicious bank activities? No, we want to talk about crack cocaine. No. This time, why don't you get it right and get to the core? Don't talk about BJ's like you did with Clinton. Okay. That's about that on that. That should be interesting. But I'll just add a few things on the headlines. I guess My-Uck-us they started his impeachment yesterday, and they talked to some attorneys generals from various states who all agreed that he was a disaster and he should go, and he should have been gone yesterday. But the D's came to his rescue and said, you are all partisan. You're partisan about this poor guy. And if there's any problem, it's the goppers' fault because they're not giving us money to process people faster. So that was where that went. Not much. Because this Turley guy was saying it's a bad idea to impeach secretaries. But I think Turley is just part of that whole big bureaucratic swampy mess. He sounds good on paper, but you start digging and he's just an apparatchik, just a yes man. Don't forget him. I think My-Uck-us is one of the worst disasters. I can't stand looking at him. Looking at him reminds me of the Lord of the Rings. And I think I know who I'm talking about. I think you know who I'm talking about. So, get rid of him any way you can. And I don't think he's an entity that's a human. So, if you get rid of him in a draconian way, I think it's fine. Demons and devils have to be eradicated. And the last little headline is, I guess this Epps guy finally got his comeuppance, since he was a FBI plant, but he was all over the YouTube and internet saying, let's storm the Capitol, because he was trying to goad them in so that they could be arrested and they could weed out who the, naysayers are. It's obvious. So he was found guilty of sedition, doing a riot. Now, I know some grandmas that probably got 20 years just for leaving their sewing bag on the stairs or whatever they did. And people that were in D.C. that they found them on the roster of the planes flying in that day were arrested in Delaware, Maryland, or Wenatchee, Idaho, or somewhere, and brought back and incarcerated. So we all know that was just a way to have a strong man for them to complain about. But this Epps guy got a stiff sentence, $500 fine, 1 year probation, 100 hours community service. So they threw the book at him. I mean, not like they gave it so easy to Horns. They gave such an easy sentence to the Proud Boy leader, 20 years. So, yeah, that was fair. They'll all be pardoned as soon as Orangey is reelected, but since there's not going to be an election, I don't know what's going to become of them. They may need the storming of the Bastille again, with its aftermath. Look up the history. I think you'll know what I'm talking about. All right. Happy birthday, Nick. I hope you enjoyed this one. I just kind of offed it off the top. All right. Bye.